please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
You're watching Business Lunch. I'm Nisha Podar, and with me, as always, is Sonia Shenoy. Sonia, good afternoon. What a fabulous day on the markets, and market rally really is still sustaining at this point. Sensex up above that 36,000 mark, and Nifty maintaining above that 11,000 mark. So all the records that were broken and the key levels being maintained. What's also good about today's market is that the broader markets are really participating. So mid-cap index is also rallying in line with the frontline indices. If you have to see some bit of underperformance, that has to come in from the banking space. Bank Nifty is the one which is underperforming both Nifty, Sensex as well as the mid-cap index, and the key over there is also one particular stock, which is HDFC Bank, which is really not participating in the rally, Sonia.
Oh yes, what a day, right? What an afternoon. I mean, I don't know what this market is smoking, but it's smoking something really strong. Look at the moves that we're seeing. Anuj is also with us. Anuj, no stopping the kind of rally that we've seen in the markets. Bears all hiding for cover, it seems.
Oh yes, and you know, Sonia, this is a classical definition of a trend day. You had a big gap up, that's sustaining, and at 1 p.m. there's a minor, just a minor intraday dip. And normally what happens is that on days like today, when you have a trend day, you have that 1 to 1:30 period, which is the dip period. And after 1:30, you see if the morning high is taken out, you see second round of buying. So across the board buying, volumes are surging. This is expiry week. Bulls will make sure that the last remaining bear, regardless of how much power he or she has, will be forced to cover at least for this month or roll over and, you know, have some more expenses for next month. But clearly, all guns blazing for the market. IT and banks both are doing well, though banks slightly off the high point. Mid caps doing well. A lot of old economy stocks doing well. You know, I'm struggling to see if there's any kind of weakness. And you know, metals, the way the metals have rallied today, it's global factor as well. Of course, both ferrous and non-ferrous stocks doing well. So momentum is working in expiry week. This is one expiry week in which you don't want to. You know, you don't want to be cute and say that, you know, let sanity prevail. You know, this is a market in which you want to participate on the upside. Of course, have your risk management in place. Maybe, you know, if you want to buy some puts, if you want to, just to protect your portfolio. But breakouts after breakouts in a lot of large stocks. We discussed how yesterday TCS added, you know, TCS added 25,000 crore market cap. Reliance added 20,000 crore.
I know we keep talking about the melt up and nobody wants to talk about the meltdown right now.
Yes.
But that's inevitably going to come at some point, right?
It will, but you know what? What if it comes after, you know, the Sensex has gone to 40,000, Sonia? I remember.
You don't want to miss out on
exactly, that. I remember, you know, when the Nifty was at 9,500, there was a call made that, you know, the market can correct 10%, but after going to 11,000. Then even then you would be higher than the current levels. So here right now, you know, I don't know, look at the amount of, you know, number of days you've taken from move to from 35,000 to 36,000, just 6 days. You saw the recent Bitcoin rally, right? I mean, there were times when, you know, the number of days just kept reducing. So I won't be surprised, for example, if 36 to 37 is even faster. I mean, of course, at some point things will get dangerous and, you know, you'll have to take note of what's happening. But you know, you can't miss on a market rally thinking what would happen. You know, you go out and do, you know, sky jumping. You don't think first thing is whether my shoot will work or not, right? You
but
take
you
the
wear
leap
a
of
shoot
faith.
nevertheless.
You wear a shoot, but you jump, right?
Okay, I didn't compare Bitcoin to the market. You did, okay? That was not me. Thanks, Anuj, for joining us. But let's cut across to Shireen Bhan now, who is in conversation with the key person at Blackstone on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum in Davos. So, Shireen, over to you.
Live from World Economic Forum. In just a few hours from now, all eyes will be on Prime Minister Modi as he opens the World Economic Forum's annual summit. The plenary session will be addressed by the Prime Minister. Joining us now is a man who's been a veteran India watcher, John Sudinsky. A pleasure to have you back on CNBC TV18. You know, you've looked at India for years now. You've been evaluating and assessing Modi-nomics, if I could call it that. What's your take on what the Prime Minister has been able to deliver on and what the expectations are now from him?
Well, Modi has extraordinary expectations. Remember, he is someone who people see as the great story. He's someone who is, I think, aspiring to be a what I call a transformational leader. And by transformational, I mean really to take India to the next level of its status on the global economic front. And that, of course, is not something that can be done in 3 or 4 or 5 years. It's something, you know, when you evaluate a chief executive officer, you can't evaluate him over 4 to 6 years or her over 4 to 6 years. They need at least 10 years. So we're going to have to evaluate Modi over this term, and then, of course, he'll be re-elected and over the next term.
You're certain about that?
Well, I think India should give him the benefit of letting him work at transforming India. He's already put in place a number of building blocks with demonetization, anti-corruption, transparency, doing international business in India has become easier. Now, I know the domestic market is always going to be more cynical. Lots of people's short-term lives have been possibly disrupted by the demonetization. We all know that. People love to criticize the demonetization process and how it was handled. And perhaps some of the logistics of that could have been more efficient. But having said that, he has a vision. And he's got to balance the long-term vision with the interim vision with the sort of short-term logistics. And I think where he has to obviously focus more is making sure the short-term communication with his constituencies across all of India is continued to focus on. He is, you know, he's got to balance today this whole juxtaposition of being an identity populist leader, which he is, with being a long-term transformational leader. And, you know, is he going to be the next sort of Nehru of his time? Who knows?
Is he going to be the next Nehru of his time? Is that the expectation? What is it that you would like to hear from him this morning?
I think he probably wants to tell everybody where he sees India. You know, last year people are going to look at this alongside the discussion that President Xi had about the vision of China. And last year, President Xi's speech really re-anchored China. It almost turned the world on its head and made the world focus on China. I think people want to see, is India going to play a prominent role in the world economy going forward? The growth is there, the potential is there, the talent is there, particularly in the areas of technology. The question is, can Modi put a much bigger sustainable team in place in order to accomplish that growth on a prolonged level?
Well, last year was about China. This year it's about India. And it's also going to be about President Trump and the U.S. What's the expectation there?
Well, it's unprecedented that almost the entire cabinet will come to Davos. So from Klaus Schwab's point of view, it's a great kudos for him for getting all of them here. And I think it's important for the cabinet to be engaged in international dialogue. And I think it's good. I think Trump is still an enigma to all international leaders, certainly to the Indian press. So to have Trump here is a good thing.
What's the outlook as far as global growth is concerned, global economy, and the fact that we're seeing crazy valuations, whether it's India or it's the U.S., global equity markets, you know, continue to see momentum, continue to rally. What's your own outlook on where things are headed?
I don't really see, there's no indication whatsoever in 2018 that there's going to be any change other than continued sustained performance of the U.S. stock market and the global stock markets. We're looking at growth this year globally of between 3.5% and 4%. You still have low interest rates, low probability of recession, low volatility, and profit margins and earnings are in a very stable, sustainable levels. There's always the chance of a shock. And of course,
what could that be and where could it come from?
Great afternoon of trade it is turning out to be. But we're going to focus on some stories apart from the market as well. Government-run canteen stores department, which had an annual sale of around 17,000 crores last financial year and makes up between 5 to 7% of the industry FMCG sales, is all set to dish out major IT contracts for automation of all its defense canteens. That's good to hear. Sources tell CNBC TV18 that it is already talking to a set of players. Priya Shade gets us this story. Priya, over to you.
Well, absolutely. In fact, at a time when business from the government is a bit muted for IT companies, this is some good news coming in from them. In fact, what we do understand from our sources is that the canteen stores department is working on an automation as well as an integration of the e-commerce operations. Now, contracts specifically with regards to application management, engagement as well as software development will be taken up by several IT players. At this point in time, several players have shown interest. There's an expression of interest that's come in from them, and key players among them include Tech Mahindra, PwC, EY, TechTree, as well as Microsoft is what we do understand from our sources. Now, as far as the contract is concerned, this is likely to be a 3-year contract, which will be renewable after the expiration of 3 years. And it's likely to be a staggered contract, which means that this could be backed by more than one players, is what we do understand. But of course, as far as the whole automation and integration activities are concerned, this IT contract will help the canteen stores department monitor stock holdings across their outlets. That's the 4,500 defense canteens that it runs. So clearly, it's some good news coming in for IT players. Of course, the timeline of the contract as to when the contract will be awarded is something that we'll have to wait and watch out for. Also, the size of the contract is something that we will await because clarity is still awaited on the exact framework of the contract. In fact, we did write to CSD, and the company has confirmed that they are looking for automation of inventory and opening of e-commerce operations.
All right, Priya, thanks so much for getting us all those exclusive details. Now, remember, the big budget countdown has really begun, and the market is really hitting fresh highs ahead of that. Now, Caesar Masri of Goldman Sachs tells us which are the emerging markets that really fund managers are buying into in the year 2018. Take a look.
How are investors positioning coming into 2018? And I think the key word is growth. Investors who are dedicated to the emerging markets, that is, those who run investment funds that are benchmarked to the asset class, are clearly favoring countries where the growth profile has been improving. India certainly features among those countries, Brazil as well, and Russia as a third country which investors are overweight. And again, I think the point here is what we've seen thematically in equity markets over the last few years is the countries that are delivering growth are the ones that are outperforming. And so I think that's clearly what the view is heading into 2018, that theme will continue. Across the emerging universe, you've seen profit margin declines over the last few years as growth slowed. And in the last sort of 12 to 18 months, with top-line growth picking up, we're now seeing an improvement in profit margins. That's already happened in some parts of technology in particular, but there are a few countries, and again, India is one of them, where profit margins had come down and only now are starting to recover. So in the macro landscape of strong growth in 2018, we see sort of outsized earnings growth, looking at about 18% earnings growth for Indian corporates in calendar year 2018.
Okay, so that's Caesar Masri saying they're optimistic on both Brazil as well as on India. But look at Edelweiss Financial's numbers, looking very strong. A net profit growth of almost 48% at 236 odd crores. Even the top line, 2,081 odd crores, the top line figure, that's a growth of almost 30% that the company has seen on the top line and 40% on the bottom line. Remember, Edelweiss Financial has been a huge multi-bagger over the last 1 year. If I can just ask my director to pull up a 1-year chart of Edelweiss. It's gone from 80 or 60 to 300 in just a matter of time. Look at that, in 12 months, about 175%. And it has been delivering as far as earnings are concerned as well. So these look like a stellar set of numbers from the company. In fact, most brokerages, not brokerages anymore, most of them have become NBFCs now, have been doing exceptionally well.
Now, take a look at the markets. While the frontline indices are really holding on to the key levels that they had really mounted in the morning, what is one point to note definitely in the marketplace is the breadth of the market. So it is now in favor of the declines. In fact, those lines have really met and tapered, and that is because the broader markets and some of the smaller companies are probably taking some bit of profit booking at this point. Some of the counters that have really been slammed in the last few minutes of trade, like Muthoot Capital, Symphony, Binani Industries. These are the counters which have really fallen at this point. But I must admit that it is with lower volumes. All right, it's Vinyl Chem Q3 numbers. Net profit at 4.5 crore rupees. On a YOY basis, it is versus 0.7 odd crore rupees. Take a look at that particular counter. Is surging up on the back of good results, or those particular results are really taking the stock up. There you go. Over 7% up in trades. Take a look at other parameters or other numbers also trickling in apart from the net profit numbers. In fact, the revenues have jumped up by 63.5% at 108.9 crore rupees versus 66.6 crore rupees on a YOY basis. So that stock really doing well, Sonia.
Yes, in fact, moving on, Canfin Homes is also in focus after it reported a weak set of numbers. To decode the numbers and find out what led to that huge intraday fall, Abhishek Kothari is with us. Abhishek, the sector has been doing well in general, but what happened with Canfin Homes?
The problem with Canfin Homes, Sonia, is that the loan growth rate has been declining. So if you look at 6 quarters back, the loan growth was at 29%. So coming from 29%, it has been on a declining trend, and today it is at 19%. This is, bizarre in terms of, you look at DHFL results. They also concentrate on lower ticket sizes, and their growth rate is 50%, or even on a quarter-on-quarter 13%, while Canfin is struggling to grow. Canfin is purely into home financing. They are not much into loan against properties or the construction finance. They are purely into home finance and largely to salaried employees, mainly to the government employees, salaried customers. Over there is a massive slowdown. And even if you look at the disbursements have declined by 2% on a quarter-on-quarter basis, and they have remained in single digits over the last 4 to 6 quarters. So that is a worrisome factor, that your disbursements are not growing and your loan growth is being tapered off. Apart from that, margins also declined sequentially by 6 basis points, and asset quality deteriorated slightly. Gross NPA in absolute value increased by 11 crores, and on a percentage basis, it increased by 6 basis points to 0.46%. Not gone down well with the investors.
Oh, these numbers could be worrying actually for Canara Bank, because they are looking at selling a stake. In fact, that process is going on. Several private equity firms are looking at this particular stake buy as well. But Rane Madras is zooming up on the back of the numbers which have just been reported. And remember, it's a very good day, so any bit of good news coming on any counter is really taking the stock up. So at the moment, almost 15% up on Rane Madras because of net profit being clocked in at 14.2 crore rupees. And some of the other numbers also trickling in for that particular counter on the third quarter. So stock up over 14% in trades as we speak.
Well, that just goes to show what kind of interest this market has, right? Hungry for ideas. Just a wee bit of good news, and look at the way the stocks are soaring. Those are NIIT's numbers as well. Looking pretty good. Prima facie, net profits at almost 20 crores versus 4.5 crores.